What up, motherfucks? It's your boy, the hater. I woke up pretty angry this morning. I don't know why, motherfucks. I just did. You know what I'm saying? And I started making a video that I'm going to finish later. But in the middle of this video, I came up with a theory that I believe no one else has come up with yet, motherfucks. At least as far as I know. I'm not really I don't watch that many other YouTubers. You know, I watch myself, motherfucks. I watch me some J-Rants, some Casual Q. You know what I'm saying? I watch a few guys here and there. But I'm not in the game as deeply as some other people. But I will say this, so maybe people have come up with this. But I will say this, I think I hit the nail right on the head when I was thinking about this. And I think I have come up with the answer as to one of the biggest questions in wrestling. Why does tag team wrestling suck ass? And why is tag team wrestling not treated with respect and importance? I have come up with what I believe to be the best answer to this problem. And here it is, motherfucks. Here it is. I call it the Just There Wrestler or the Just There Tag Team. What do I mean by this? Let's go back to a little time called the Attitude Era, motherfucks. The Attitude Era was notorious for having some of the biggest superstars in WWE history. However, the WWE or WWF back then also had a lot of Just There wrestlers. However, the Just There wrestlers were integrated into the show in a way that made them feel important. You know, the mid-carders all had storylines, and some mid-carders, which I am dubbing the Just There wrestlers, were mid-carders that could be plugged anywhere onto the show. You could put them in the opening match on Sunday Night Heat, or they could be in the main event of Raw. An example of this would be someone like Hardcore Holly, Al Snow, Val Venus, these guys, right? These people that would fluctuate big time, right? It wasn't until like Kurt Angle, Jericho, Benoit, where we really started to have an established mid-card. Like where Kurt Angle was an established guy in the Intercontinental Championship division. That was his division for a moment, right? He wasn't a main eventer yet, but he wasn't out there wrestling for the light heavyweight title either. You know, he was European champion at the same time, which bolstered his presence as a mid-card powerhouse. He had both mid-card titles. Now, motherfucks, what I'm getting at here is this. People like Al Snow could be plugged in. You could have him feud with, I don't know, S.A. Rios on Sunday Night Heat, and then the next week, he could come out, cut a promo and say, Rock, you've been holding me down. And it could be him versus The Rock, let's say, or him versus Mankind, right? At Monday Night Raw's main event. Even at a pay-per-view, you could see Al Snow versus Mankind, right? In a grudge match, in a serious, like, Al Snow's he's losing his fucking mind type of shit, right? Hardcore Holly, same thing, you know? These Just There wrestlers really made wrestling. And I should reiterate, there is absolutely no shame in someone being a Just There wrestler. I believe these people are just as important as the main eventers. In fact, without them, the main eventers would not seem as special as they did. Now here's the thing. Today, we also have a lot of just There wrestlers, like Kofi Kingston, right? He can be a jobber, and he can like drop the Brock Lesnar in 5 seconds, or he can be plugged into Elimination Chamber and win the title at WrestleMania. A lot of things can be done with Cucky Kingston. Now here's the thing, all right? Today, we also have a lot of Just There tag teams. My argument is that back in the day, there were essentially 0 Just There tag teams. Now, of course, there were a few, like the Headbangers, right? Like Al Snow and Steve Blackman, Head Cheese, right? Too Cool. You know, there were a few of Just There tag teams, but there were also a lot of not Just There tag teams. So, why is this important? I'll tell you, motherfucks. Let's think about some of the top tag teams in the Attitude Era. All right, we got Too Cool. They were a top team, like people liked them. They were entertaining. We have the Hardy Boys. We have Edge and Christian, the Dudley Boys, and APA, right? Let's take out Too Cool from this consideration because we just said that they're a Just There tag team. I would argue that the other 4 tag teams are not Just There tag teams. They are special tag teams. And here's what I mean. You look at the 8 men that are in these 4 tag teams, the APA, Dudleys, Hardys, and Edge and Christian. Out of the 8 men, 4 of these motherfucks became WWE World Champions. And a few of them became champions elsewhere, like TNA. Bully Ray became world champion in TNA, so did Matt Hardy. Ron Simmons is like the first African-American world champion, period. But we're not going to count that because his tag team career started way past that. So it's not really fair to pretend that like he had the same level of prestige and the same spot on the card when he was with the APA. He didn't. Let's be honest, right? But nonetheless, he was still great, right? Devon is still great. But out of all those people, Devon and Ron Simmons are the only two guys that afterwards did not become world champions of some sort. And four of these guys, Edge, Christian, Hardy, and JBL, became world champions in WWE at different times in their career. Do you see what I'm getting at, motherfuckers? Do you see what I'm getting at? All of these tag teams had a minimum of one Shawn Michaels, right? And a maximum of one Jannetty. I would argue that out of these 8 men, none of them were Jannettis. But you may disagree, right? Now let's look at the tag teams today. It's just a bunch of Jannettis trading wins and losses with each other. Think about it. What is the difference between, I don't know, Street Profits and let's think of another job, Breezango, right? What is the difference between them? Breezango could easily be plugged into Raw and have the same career as the Street Profits. Nothing separates the two. You want to know why? Because it's 4 Jannettis working together. That's all it is. Same thing. Hurt Business, Jannettis. New Day, mostly Jannettis, right? Think about that. The premise of the tag team division, like every other division in wrestling in the past, was to produce stars. You have a team called Edge and Christian. Basically, this starts out as they sign Edge, and they're like, oh, you're good, kid. Here's the Intercontinental Championship. Hold it for a day, right? Then they're like, oh, we signed Christian. Oh, you guys are like best friends in real life? All right, we're going to put you together with Gangrel. And you're going to be like a lower mid-card team. But in this, you will learn wrestling in the WWE style. Eventually, Edge and Christian finally fulfill the prophecy and become tag team champions. You know, it was a big deal. Obviously, very memorable matches. And then they realize, okay, that big one that we had in the beginning, Edge, is going to be a star. They all knew this, right? Christian, we'll see what happens. Same thing with the Hardy Boys. They're like, this Jeff Hardy guy is going to be a star. I don't know if they thought that he was going to be a world champion, but he's going to be a star. The Dudley Boys are a little bit different because while WWE never pushed any individual Dudley, they were held together as easily the best tag team in WWE history. Easily the best book tag team, easily the best and most entertaining tag team of all time, in my opinion. But they were held together and given several main event spots on SmackDown, on Raw, main eventing against Taker, Big Show. During the invasion angle, the Dudley Boys were a prominent part of the invasion angle, main eventing the first pay-per-view in that like 10-man tag team match. You know, they were a big deal. A big deal, motherfucks. So what I'm saying here is this. The tag team division was used to either create big stars that would become single stars or create a Dudley Boy-esque tag team, which eventually led to 2 single stars in Bubba Ray and Devon, aces and eights, motherfucks. So what I'm getting at here, motherfuckers, is that this is not happening today anymore. Today, the divisions in WWE do not matter. If you are the mid-card champion, it doesn't matter. If you are the tag team champion, it doesn't matter. Because the goal of these divisions is not to find the next champion. The goal of these divisions is just to fill TV time. Think about it. Let's look at all the tag teams right now that are prominent. And let's do the haters' new test. Michaels or Jannetty, right? So let's start actually with the Attitude Era tag teams. Scotty 2 Hotty and Grandmaster Sexay. Jannetty. 2 Jannettis. Everyone knew that neither of those guys would ever become a champion or become a star, right? Edge and Christian. 2 Shawn Michaelses. One of the rare tag teams that produced 2 world champions. That's why you could even argue they're the best tag team of all time. The Dudley Boys. I would argue 2 Shawn Michaelses here, right? Because of their eventual careers that they had, you know? And also the fact that they are the #1 tag team of all time. JBL and Farouk. Unfortunately, I have to give Farouk the Jannetty here. He gets the Jannetty. And JBL became world champion as a direct result of his work with the APA and the fact that right before they broke up, he was in the best shape of his life. He looked like a motherfucker, you know? So there you have it, right? 1 Shawn Michaels, 1 Jannetty. You see? Hardy Boys. You could argue two Shawn Michaelses, but I will say that Jeff Hardy clearly is the Shawn Michaels and Matt Hardy is the Marty Jannetty. Until recently. Recently, you can make the counter argument that Matt Hardy got them their jobs back with his broken gimmick. So, whatever, right? At least one, we can all agree, at least one Shawn Michaels. Now, let's look at some of the tag teams today. The Usos, also known as the two Jannettis, the Jannetty twins, right? Street Profits, two Jannettis. Neither of these guys will ever become anything special. We all know it. Montez Ford has the potential to reach a level that's commensurate to like a John Morrison, maybe. That's his ceiling, and that's a ceiling that he probably won't reach. Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin. Shelton Benjamin is now a Jannetty, obviously. Cedric Alexander is going to be positioned as the Shawn Michaels of this tag team, but he will not have any success. He will never become anything special. Let's be real, right? This is probably the height of his career. But he might, motherfucks, there's a possibility, he might have like a Chavo Guerrero-esque career. Probably not, but he might reach those levels. What else do we got? Breezango. Obviously two Jannettis. The entire tag team is, the whole point is these two Jannettis were exposed as being Jannettis and now they're together, right? MSK. I like the kids. I like them very much, but these are two Jannettis. Neither of these guys will become a world champion. Let's be real, right? What else we got here, motherfucks? Let's see. Grizzled Young Vets, two Jannettis. Oni Lorcan and Danny Burch, two Jannettis, motherfucks. Jannetty City up in this bitch. Shotzi Blackheart and Ember Moon, two Jannettis. You know what I mean? What I'm trying to say is there's no tag team except maybe the New Day, because the New Day, like Big E, might get a push one day. Kofi Kingston did get a push in the past, so you can't say that this is like a Jannetty tag team. Like you can't say Kofi Kingston is on the same level as Xavier Woods. He's the Shawn Michaels, Woods is the Jannetty, right? And even Woods might get a push one day, and it wouldn't be undeserved because Woods does put in hard work. He has good matches. He puts his body on the line, and he's like big enough to be believable. I mean, I think he's a pussy and you know, a nerd, but it is what it is, right? The point I'm trying to make is that every tag team in WWE right now is full of Jannettis. Now, I'll even extend this argument beyond, right? So the main point I'm trying to make is that the tag team wrestling sucks ass because you have no actual Shawn Michaelses, right? You have no one there to push the division. You have no one that's worth watching. So perfect example, motherfucks. What's it called? Hurt Business apparently, I think I skipped this match or something, apparently lost the titles to New Day again last night. Which begs the question, why did they win it in the first place? Absolutely nothing was served by this short-ass title reign that the Street Profits, or whatever the fuck, the Hurt Business had, right? Nothing was served. Nothing is served by them dropping the titles or winning the titles. They're still wrestling New Day. Who gives a flying fuck? See what I'm saying? Did they wrestle anybody else? Like during this entire feud? Did they wrestle anyone else? Maybe like the fucking Grand Metalik and the other guy once or twice. But what I'm getting at is this. It means nothing. It means nothing because we all know that except maybe Kofi Kingston, we all know that none of these guys are going to use this to boost themselves, to catapult themselves, right? That's what wrestling is all about. Every division should serve that purpose. Every division should be aimed towards being the world champion. I would even argue that in the past, the women's division was used like this. Chyna was obviously a female wrestler, and she was used as a person that would wrestle mostly men. That was her thing, right? She would wrestle mostly men, and she made her way almost to the WWE title. I think she became number one contender. And then she became Intercontinental Champion with her own efforts. Like, she didn't have to cheat. She was just legit. You know, Chyna was fucking awesome, right? So that's what I'm getting at, right? Awesome Kong, motherfuckers. Awesome Kong. Remember that Deuces Wild, whatever bullshit tournament TNA had? You know, where they paired up random people into tag teams? She was paired up with, like, Road Dogg or something, right? But she was, like, the only woman in that match. She had transcended her division and now had gone to another division. Wrestling with men. This used to happen all the time, motherfuckers. And it was by design. It wasn't random, right? It was never random, you know? You had certain people in certain divisions. And the point was, we're going to put a bunch of jobbers in this division because it's the jobber division. But in here, we're going to have one or two guys that might one day break through and become world champions, right? So Shawn Michaels might start as the European champion or as part of a tag team. But eventually, he will become Shawn Michaels and the other guy will become Jannetty. This problem is one that is happening right now as we speak in WWE and also wrestling worldwide. That tag team wrestling is not taken seriously because no stars are coming from the tag team division. You know, you take a look at something like Edge and Christian, right? How long were they a tag team? Like 3-4 years? You know, Breezango has been a tag team for way longer. But why are Edge and Christian considered the best tag team of all time by some, and Breezango are just jobbers? I'll tell you why, motherfucks. 2 reasons. Number 1, memorable moments, right? They had memorable careers, memorable feuds as a tag team, right? And Edge and Christian became world champions. So they had longevity in their careers. They were important always during their careers. Christian signs with AEW, it's still big news. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm getting at. You need to have tag teams that create stars. JBL becoming a star boosts the APA. It boosts them as a tag team. Jeff Hardy and Matt Hardy, same thing. They boost each other. Bubba Ray becoming world champion boosts the Dudley Boys even more, if that was even possible. You see, in other divisions in WWE, this doesn't happen at all. So for example, I don't understand why the Cruiserweight division is continuously treated as a throwaway division. A throwaway jobber division where no champion matters, right? Santos Escobar is a breath of fresh air because he's been champion for a while and he feels more important than people like Leo Rush or Jordan Devlin. He gives a fuck about Jordan Devlin. He feels like a bigger deal. But let's be real. This entire tag team was composed of absolute jobbers. Just total jobberish nonsense. And therefore, no star has ever been made from the Cruiserweight division. You have people like Cedric Alexander and Buddy Murphy who suck ass. They're out there trading wins with Arya Daivari. And then eventually, they make it to WWE and nothing happens. You know what I mean? Nothing happens. They just stay jobbers. They might have like a win here and there, but they become jobbers. So that's what I'm getting at, cucks. That's what I'm getting at. Would it hurt? Would it hurt, for example, to take 2 people that you know are going to be stars and put them in the Cruiserweight division? Just to have them start out there? Finn Balor, for example. If you thought Finn Balor was going to be a big deal, put him in the Cruiserweight division, have him win the title, right, immediately, hold it for like 6 months, right, drop it in some sort of screw job thing, right, have him get fired from 205 Live, he shows up on Raw, and then becomes world champion. Then goes back to 205 Live one time and says, fuck all of you. I'm world champion now. Kiss my white ass. Right? That's what, or my white Irish ass, I should say. Right? That's what he could do. That's what they could do now. Find the next guy. Maybe it's Tommaso Ciampa. Maybe it's Johnny Gargano. I don't know. Some guy that you plan on pushing when they get to the main roster, and you put them in the Cruiserweight show, 205 Live, and you have them win there. The Cruiserweight title is not even a 205 Live anymore. It's like an NXT title. You know what I mean? It's the NXT Cruiserweight title. It's fucking weird. 205 Live has no purpose. What I'm getting at is this. Same idea can be implemented with the tag teams, right? So let's say you have one guy in your developmental, right? Let's say you have one guy that you've signed. Like that guy that everyone's talking about, that Brock Lesnar looking guy. I forget his name, like Broderick or whatever. Bordeaux, something Bordeaux, right? Dakota Bordeaux, I don't know, some weird name like that. I guess let's say you expect this guy to become the next Lashley Lesnar type, right? You know, what damage will it do if you give him a gimmick, right, and put him in a tag team with any other guy? Maybe Tino Sabatelli, since he's collecting a paycheck and doing nothing. You put him and Tino Sabatelli together. You present them as equals, but you subtly show that this Bordeaux guy is kicking ass. He's the star, Sabatelli's the Jannetty, right? Ideally, you have 2 Shawn Michaelses, but that's fine. You can sacrifice a Jannetty to push one Shawn Michaels, right? Eventually, Tino Sabatelli and this other guy have a war of words. Tino Sabatelli turns heel and betrays him. And this leads to this guy having a successful career, leading him to the main event. I'm not saying do it with this Bordeaux guy. Do it with anyone you want. Do it with Damian Priest. Like, why is Damian Priest being introduced as just a singles guy? Just make it Damian Priest and fucking, I don't know, Humberto Carrillo. Who gives a shit? Damian Priest and Tino Sabatelli. Fuck it. Tino Sabatelli and Damian Priest. They're these 2 club-going, like, dudes, right, that like get a lot of ass. You know? You bring them in as a tag team. You give them 2 years as a serious tag team. They win the titles. Eventually, Tino Sabatelli turns on him. Damian Priest hits him with a fucking reckoning or whatever the fuck. Lights out now. Hit the lights. Right? Turns face, becomes a main eventer, and then boom. In this, you've also produced a memorable tag team. The tag team becomes memorable because it produced a star. That's what I'm getting at, motherfucks. That's what you need to do. Tag teams like Edge and Christian were on for 3 years. but they're way more memorable than New Day, because what the fuck has New Day done? This entire like 7 years they've been together. What have they done? What memorable feuds has New Day had? The only memorable thing is Kofi Kingston's run and maybe their feud against the primetime players. You know, that's it. Those are the only things that I remember. I don't remember anything else about the New Day. If you ask me like, oh, well, how was the New Day, Jey Uso and other Uso feud? It was shit. They're all nerds. They're all nerds pretending they're cool people. Like that, like the rap battle, right? It's like these people are just nerds. You know, like this ABC Rikishi level rhyming, which makes sense because they're his sons, right? This like complete dog shit, you know? He's like, oh, keep it rated R like your boy Xavier. Shut the fuck up. You're fucking losers. You're not fun. You're not cool people. You know? Like neither is the New Day. So them having a battle rap is just, it's like two nerds. Like those two guys that you know in high school that play hacky sack, all of a sudden having a rap battle. Nobody gives a fuck. You know what I'm saying? So nothing was memorable. But memorable things happen with cool people that eventually become stars. And sometimes you have to manufacture this. And we see this. We've seen this so many times in other tag teams. So perfect example, Crime Time, motherfucks. Crime Time, right? Shad Gaspard, JTG. Obviously, Shad Gaspard was the intended Shawn Michaels and JTG was the intended Jannetty, right? Turns out they both happen to be Jannetties. Rest in peace, Shad Gaspard. But Shad Gaspard, for a while, looked like a credible threat. And I think the plan was to make him world champion. The plan was he will turn serious, like he's gonna shed this horseshit like Crime Time gimmick of like funny hoodlum basically, right? Funny gangster guy, and he's gonna become a serious guy by kicking JTG in the head with the Timberland and then hitting the STO, Shad taking over, motherfucks, on him. Yeah? For some reason, JTG won the pay-per-view match. I couldn't understand it. I was like, what the fuck? Everybody knows JTG's a Jannetty. You know, JTG, Jannetty. You know what I'm saying? Jannetty, that gangster, whatever, just that gangster, I think his name was. Right? So, the intention behind it was clear. The intention was one guy's a star, the other guy's a jobber. Versus, let's say, the Highlanders. Remember those two Scottish guys that were like so ass backwards, they would like take a shit on urinals? Like that stupid ass gimmick. Both of those guys were intended to be Jannetties. You know? Like La Resistance was intended to have 3 Shawn Michaelses. You know? All 3 of those guys were given a legitimate push until they fizzled out. Like Sylvain Grenier was given a push, Rob Conway was giving a great push, and the Dupree was given a push. Until the push failed, and then they realized, put this Jannetty back in the tag team with Kenzo Suzuki, right? The point is you have to give people a chance. And sometimes you have to manufacture the chance for them. You have to use a Tino Sabatelli to push someone else, right? You have to use one guy to push the other guy. A perfect example would have been this. How successful would it have been if instead of signing Kenta and Nakamura and presenting them as 2 single stars that will one day become champion, why don't you just take them and repackage them as, I don't know, Kai and Tai 2, right? Come up with a better name, of course, but repackage them as a Japanese tag team, right? But you could fit the narrative around it. You could say, these guys are 2 of the best wrestlers in Japan, and they have decided to come together to form a tag team, right? They become these 2 ruthless heels that are kicking the shit out of people, right? Kneeing them in the face, like hurting them, you know? They eventually fight the New Day or the Usos, beat them soundly, you know? Then eventually, you break them apart, then you have a match, which many might consider a dream match. Nakamura versus Kenta, right? The winner becomes Shawn Michaels, the loser becomes Jannetty. And when I say Jannetty, the loser can still become Intercontinental Champion. But you have legitimately created 2 stars by pushing them the correct way. Instead, what they do is they bring Nakamura to SmackDown. He has the mandatory Dolph Ziggler feud, you know, wins that, then wrestles a bit more, starts jobbing left and right, wins the Royal Rumble, and then since that day forward, he's just been a jobber. You know? Think about what would have worked better. You know what I mean? At the very least, with my method, you could have had a legitimately memorable tag team of Kenta and Nakamura. At this point, Kenta, for sure, and Nakamura, most likely, will not have memorable WWE careers. They just won't. You know? Same thing with Cesaro. All these people that are stars could have benefited from my format. Now, before we go, just like I said, you know, why don't they take Finn Balor, let's say, put him in the Cruiserweight division, make a star that way, or in the tag team division, make a star that way. That's why you have no stars. Think about how AEW is doing this instead. I hate to do it, motherfuckers, but I gotta say it like it is. AEW has done a much better job of making their divisions feel important. Here's how. Obviously, the World Championship division feels important by virtue of the fact that it's the most important division de facto in AEW. It's the big title, right? The women's division, I don't give a shit about. I don't even count it. They're trying to make it seem like a big deal by having Hikaru Shida be champion for like a fucking 1,000 years. Who knows, right? They're trying to do that, and I get it. The other divisions, though, are primed to create new stars or primed to be taken seriously. Think about this. First of all, the tag team division. The tag team champions, the Young Bucks, are consistently presented and have been done so the entirety of the company's existence. They've been presented as the number one tag team, not just in AEW, but in the world. So, by having the number one tag team in the world be your tag team champions, you get some prestige. That's not enough, of course, because anyone can just claim that New Day is the best tag team in the world and problem solved. But the difference is this. When the Young Bucks defend the world title, the world tag team titles, they might defend them against people like Jericho and MJF. And the Young Bucks might then pin Jericho in the middle of the ring. This would be the equivalent of the New Day defending it against Lashley and Roman Reigns, right? Or no, maybe like Lashley and, I don't know, fucking Riddle, right? Defending against them and pinning Lashley. You know? That would be a big deal, don't you think? And not even Lashley, but like Randy Orton would be a better example. Because Lashley just became a main eventer. So you see what I'm getting at? The Young Bucks promote the tag team division by basically saying that us two together, the Young Bucks, can beat someone like Jericho and MJF, who are positioned as big-time single stars. You see what I'm getting at? Then, down the card, you have different tag teams in AEW. For example, you have the Acclaimed. One of them, I think Max Caster, in my opinion, is going to be the Shawn Michaels. The other one's going to be the Jannetty. Now, that doesn't mean that there's no Jannetty tag teams in AEW. There are, of course. For example, the Dark Order, might as well call them the Jannetty Order. It's just 8 Jannetties running around. You know what I mean? So, there you have it. There are a lot of that. There's a lot of that shit going on too. But there are tag teams where you might feel like a guy here might get pushed. Scorpio Sky, for example, is getting pushed. You know, a lot of these young tag teams might have a guy that becomes a Shawn Michaels, like the Suicide Blondes. I think both of those guys are going to have good careers. Jurassic Express. I think Jungle Boy's going to have a great career, and so will Luchasaurus if things keep going this way. They have Jannetty tag teams like FTR. Like, neither of those guys is ever going to become a world champion. But it is what it is. They're more like the Dudleys, like where they're just presented as a powerful tag team. And then you have the TNT title, which is, honestly, it's turning out to be one of the best booked titles of all time. They have booked this title brilliantly. I have to say it. You know, it feels like a big deal title. It feels like a title that wrestlers would want to have. This is primarily done by 3 things. Number 1, the first champion was a big star for their company. Cucky Rhodes. Now, I hate Cucky Rhodes, but when you compare Cucky Rhodes, let's say to Peter Avalon, or when you compare Cucky Rhodes to Jungle Boy, Cucky Rhodes is obviously the guy that would have been the correct choice for this, because he cannot be world champion, and this is presented as the second best thing. Like, if Cody Rhodes cannot become world champion, and he almost won the world title, and he is happy with this, this means that this thing is prestigious. It means that it is enough to satisfy Cucky Rhodes' career. The ranking, the AEW men's ranking, one of the most effective things about it, because there's almost nothing effective about it, but one of the most effective things about it is that the ranking for the world title is the same as the ranking for the TNT championship, right? So you'll have like, here are the 2 champions, and then rank number 1, you'll have like, I don't know, Pac, let's say, right? And then you'll have Cody Rhodes rank number 2, but he can't challenge for the world title. But he's still ranked number 2. So like the number 2 guy in your company is going to challenge for the Intercontinental title, essentially, right? When will that ever happen in WWE? When was the number 2 guy ever challenging for the Intercontinental title? No, the Intercontinental title was firmly for mid-carders and below. In AEW, the TNT Championship is not only for mid-carders. Sure, it is the mid-card belt, but it's not only for mid-carders. And here's why. The division is centered around Cucky Rhodes, and Cucky Rhodes is now becoming this like at libero wrestler, right? Where he can be moved from main event to undercard, no problem. He can be put in against Shaq because he does it so much, you know, against Darby Allin, etc., etc. Cucky Rhodes' persistence in chasing the title also helps. Reason number 2, persistence in chasing the title by big time, quote unquote, wrestlers. You know, Cody Rhodes is out there like promoting himself, but despite this, he wants that title back. The title means something to him, you know? And then third, the overall booking of the belt itself. Darby Allin, being the champion, has presented himself and has been presented by the company as the face of TNT. The TV title is the face of the channel, right? That's a big deal, motherfucks. That means that you're going to see this guy all the time. And he is considered to be a big deal. So big of a deal, in fact, that Sting is teaming up with him. You see what I'm getting at here? You present this as a big-time guy. He's fighting big-time guys like Brian Cage, and he's teaming with other big-time guys like Sting. The title means something. It is a meaningful title. The tag team titles in AEW mean something. In WWE, the only thing that matters is the WWE title. I would even say the Universal title means nothing either. The World Championship and in Raw is the only title that really has any value in WWE. It's always been like that. It always will be. Let's be real. You know? Not to say that being SmackDown champion isn't prestigious. You're still a world champion. But the title that is presented, and yeah, I would argue that both world titles are presented as like prestigious. As like people want these titles. But nobody wants the United States champion. This is evidenced by the fact that when they lose it, they don't care. Like Bobby Lashley lost the title, he cared for 2 minutes. That same night, he stopped caring and attacked Drew McIntyre. You know, would it hurt to have a situation like, let's say Matt Riddle loses the title and he gets pushed to the main event and he goes and becomes world champion. He beats Lashley, let's say, right? Would it hurt then to next week have him come out and say, you know what else? I'm not over the fact that I lost my US championship to fucking Cedric Alexander, let's say, right? I'm not over it, motherfuckers. I want you now, Cedric. Fight me, right? From that, you can do whatever you want. But the point is, wrestlers should care about titles. If wrestlers don't, why should I, motherfuckers? Why should I care about the US title if Lashley doesn't care about the US title? Why should I care? You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying, motherfuckers. That's what I'm saying. The only way to fix the tag team division and divisions in general is to have them be used as they are intended. Have them be used in a way where people get pushed from it. And the only way to do this is to force yourself to make tag teams, short-term tag teams that will be memorable, right? With people that are stars. With people that are stars, at least one of them, motherfuckers. At least one of them. Like I said, take that Bordeaux guy. Take him. Don't present him the same way you present Bronson Reed. Take him. Put him in a tag team, right? Since they refuse to do gimmicks, that's the only thing they can do. Because with gimmicks, you can push anybody. But they don't do gimmicks anymore. You just have two guys. Oh, here's two guys that have a loose gimmick. Like Street Profits. What's their gimmick? What is their gimmick? Has anyone tell me what their gimmick is? There's no gimmick. It's just two guys. Right? So there you go, motherfuckers. That's what I got to say about that. Take this Bordeaux guy, put him in with Tino Sabatelli, and, I don't know, make a tag team, see what happens, you know? See what happens, motherfuckers. See what happens. And with that being said, bitches, I'll talk to you motherfuckers later.